The federal government spends $500,000 to build a single housing unit for a homeless person. Meanwhile, on a sidewalk in Los Angeles, a man named Osvaldo Medrano just built one for $150, and people are lining up to buy them. This is the grassroots movement that nobody in Washington wants to talk about. In the spring of 2026, Medrano was living on a street in Los Angeles. He was inside a small wooden house that he built himself out of scrap wood and sheet metal. It had a bed in the back, a television, air conditioning, and a small garden box planted right at the entrance. Medrano works cleaning warehouses during the day, but tough circumstances forced him onto the street, and instead of accepting a crowded shelter with rigid rules and no privacy, he decided to build something better. And once he did, other people started noticing. One day, while he was constructing another small house on the sidewalk, complete with little wheels on the bottom so it could be moved, a woman walked up and said she wanted one just like it. She left him a $100 deposit on the spot. He finished it and sold it to her for $150 total. Since then, Medrano has built and sold 6 of these small wooden homes. 2 of them are currently sitting on Stanford Street in Los Angeles, built by his hands, sheltering people who would otherwise be sleeping on bare concrete. Each one is compact, maybe 8 feet long and 6 feet wide, with a plywood frame, a sheet metal roof to keep the rain out, and a hinged door that actually locks from the inside. They are not luxury, but they are shelter. And for someone who has been sleeping in a doorway, that distinction changes everything. Now, $150 is not going to get you granite countertops. But what Medrano proved is something that housing policy experts have been arguing about for decades. You do not need $500,000 to give someone a roof, 4 walls, and a locked door. You need wood, sheet metal, basic tools, and the willingness to actually do it. And Medrano is far from the only one who figured this out. About 1,000 miles north, in the Santa Cruz Mountains of California, a couple named Jeff Waldman and Molly Pfiffer had just watched a wildfire burn down everything they had built by hand on their 10-acre property. Their cabin, their outhouse, their wood-fired hot tub, all of it gone in a single fire season. When it came time to rebuild, they did not want to invest years and tens of thousands of dollars into something that might burn down again next summer. California keeps getting drier. The drought keeps getting worse. So they designed something different. They built a sleek 10 by 12 foot A-frame mini cabin using materials from Lowe's and Home Depot, galvanized metal sheets for the roof, standard 12-foot plywood sheets for the walls, designed so that almost no cutting was required, clear polycarbonate panels on the back instead of expensive glass windows, letting natural light flood in at a fraction of the cost. Total price for materials, $2,500. Total build time, 2 weekends. They liked it so much that they started selling the plans online through their website, Elevated Spaces, designed so that even a complete beginner with no construction experience could follow along. And the response has been enormous, because when people see that you can build an actual livable structure for under $3,000, it changes the entire conversation about what a home needs to cost. But some of these builds go even cheaper than that. A designer named Derek Diedrichson created the Star A-frame, one of the most talked about tiny cabin designs on the internet. It can be built for somewhere between $700 and $3,000 depending on materials and finishing. Landowners who list their property on camping platforms love it because the cabin pays for itself after just a few bookings. And then there are the completely free plans. A builder who goes by Solar Cabin designed a 14 by 14 A-frame specifically for groups building shelter for homeless people. Free plans are available to anyone. People have built them in every region of the country. So why does the A-frame shape keep showing up in these grassroots housing projects? It comes down to geometry. The steep triangular roof line means the walls and the roof are the same thing. That cuts an entire layer of framing and materials out of the build compared to a traditional box house. Snow slides right off, rain runs down immediately, and wind loads distribute naturally through the triangle. A volunteer in Michigan built one of these A-frames on a Saturday morning and had a family sleeping inside it by Sunday night. That is how fast they go up. And here is the detail that makes the whole thing work at a legal level. Because these DIY A-frames come in under 120 square feet, they fall below the threshold for building permits in most jurisdictions across the United States. That means you skip the permits, the inspections, and the months of waiting for bureaucratic approval. They run completely off-grid too. A small solar panel kit provides enough electricity for LED lights, a phone charger, and a small fan. A composting toilet handles waste without a sewer connection. A rain catchment system or a simple water tank handles drinking water. People have added portable air conditioning units, small refrigerators, and even Wi-Fi hotspots powered by a single solar array on the roof. Now, the criticism you always hear is insulation. How do you keep an A-frame warm in winter? But the criticism falls apart when you think about it. Because the roof and walls are the same surface, you only need to insulate one plane instead of two. Rigid foam board between the framing and the interior plywood creates a thermal envelope that holds heat in winter and keeps things cool in summer. Builders in Minnesota and Wisconsin have added small wood stoves and reported comfortable temperatures even when it is below zero outside. The flooring sits on a simple platform of pressure-treated lumber resting on concrete deck blocks. No foundation, no concrete slab, no excavation. You level the ground, set the blocks, lay the joists, and the platform is ready in a few hours. For a few $1,000s total, you end up with something that functions as a real home. A structure with a door that locks, windows that open, and a floor that is not made of dirt. But can you actually scale this? Can you take the concept of a cheap A-frame and turn it into something that puts a real dent in a crisis affecting 750,000 people? Because that is the number. According to the Department of Housing and Urban Development, 745,000 Americans had no place to sleep on a single night in January 2025. Among them, more than 32,000 were military veterans who came home from service to find that their country had no room for them. The answer, it turns out, is yes. And the proof is already standing in Kansas City, Missouri. In 2015, a group of combat veterans looked around at the way America was treating its homeless veterans and decided they had seen enough. They pooled their money, their skills, and their contacts, and they started building, not lobbying, not petitioning, building with their own hands. The organization they created is called the Veterans Community Project, and today, their flagship village in Kansas City has 49 tiny homes sitting on a single piece of land, each one providing transitional housing to a veteran with zero rent. Each home is about 240 square feet, fully furnished, every single one. A bed, a couch, a kitchen table, dishes, pots and pans, bedding, towels. When a veteran moves out, volunteers come in and refresh the entire unit so it looks brand new for the next person. And when veterans leave, they take everything with them. The furniture, the dishes, the bedding, everything. Because the whole point is not to warehouse people. It is to give them a stable enough foundation that they can rebuild their lives. The village has on-site case managers who help veterans deal with mental health challenges, build resumes, find employment, and navigate the maze of VA benefits that so many of them were never told they qualified for. Veterans stay an average of 335 days, just under a year. Long enough to get stable, long enough to deal with whatever put them on the street, and long enough to walk out the front door with a plan that actually holds up. The results? 85% success rate. That means 85 out of every 100 veterans who enter the program leave with stable, independent housing, employment, and a working plan. In 2025 alone, the organization served over 1,000 participants across all its locations. And one of the details that made the biggest difference was something no government agency thought to include. The village is pet-friendly. When the founders went out and actually talked to veterans living on the streets, they kept hearing the same thing. One of the biggest barriers to entering a shelter was that shelters would not let them bring their dogs. For people who have lost everything, that animal is often the only consistent relationship they have left. So the Kansas City Village includes a pet wash station, a veterinary care room, and an off-leash area. That single decision removed one of the biggest obstacles between a veteran and a roof over their head. How many other policy solutions have failed because nobody bothered to ask that kind of question? The model worked so well that it did not stay in Kansas City. Within a few years, it spread to Milwaukee, where a brand new 40-unit village broke ground in late 2025. Then to Cincinnati, where Tiny Homes for Humanity started building a veterans village on land donated by a Methodist church, complete with community gardens, a dog park, and wraparound support services. Then to Fayetteville, North Carolina, just outside Fort Bragg, where an organization called Redeploying American Veterans is planning a village with a community hub specifically designed for the veteran population in that area. And then across the border to Vancouver, Washington, where a nonprofit called the America for Veterans Foundation finally broke ground on a housing village for homeless women veterans after nearly a decade of fundraising and setbacks. Each one of those villages exists because somebody asked the same question Medrano asked on that sidewalk in Los Angeles. What do people actually need? And then they went and built it. Now, if you have been paying attention to the numbers in this video, something probably jumped out at you. The contrast between what these grassroots builders are spending and what government programs are spending is staggering. A single unit of permanent supportive housing in the United States costs an average of $500,000. That is the government's own number. In some cities, it is significantly higher. That price includes the land, the construction, the bureaucracy, the environmental reviews, the labor agreements, the inspections, and the years of delay that come with every government-funded project. Meanwhile, a company called Connect Homes designed a modular housing unit specifically for homeless populations that costs $20,000 per bedroom. The units are the same size as a standard shipping container, making them easy to transport on any street without special permits. They run off-grid with generators or solar panels, and come with independent air conditioning and air filtration in each bedroom. A Bay Area nonprofit called Life Moves partnered with the city of Mountain View to deploy them using California's Project HomeKey grant money. In Peterborough, Canada, the city spent $2.4 million to install 50 modular cabins for homeless residents. That comes out to about $21,000 per cabin, purchased from a company called Now Housing. Within days of moving in, residents showed what the city described as positive mental and physical improvements, skipping the usual destabilization period that people experience when transitioning out of chronic homelessness. $21,000 versus $500,000 for the same outcome. A roof, 4 walls, and a lock on the door. You could house 24 people in Peterborough for the cost of a single unit in San Francisco. That is not a rounding error. That is a policy failure. And yet, the grassroots builders, the veterans organizations, and the modular housing companies keep proving that the math works. The only thing missing is the will to let it happen at scale. By the way, if you are a veteran or you know a veteran who is dealing with housing, VA benefits, or trying to figure out the next step, I put together a free guide called the Veterans Blueprint. It walks through how to access VA housing programs, which benefits most veterans never apply for, and how to connect with organizations like the ones in this video. The link is in the description below. It is free. Grab it. Now, the criticism that always comes up when people talk about tiny homes as a housing solution is that they are not real housing. Too small. Do not meet building codes, just a band-aid on a systemic problem. And some of that is fair. A 120 square foot A-frame is not a permanent solution for a family of 4. Nobody is arguing that it is. But the people making that argument are usually the same people who have spent decades failing to build the permanent solutions they keep promising. While policymakers debate the perfect answer, people are dying on the streets. The United States spent years arguing over whether housing-first policies work, whether shelters should have strict rules or be low barrier, whether permanent housing should take priority over temporary solutions. And while that argument raged on, homelessness hit a record high in 2024, with over 771,000 people counted. 266,000 of them were sleeping unsheltered on the night of the January 2025 count. On the ground, in cars, under overpasses, in tents made of garbage bags and tarps. For those people, a 240 square foot cabin with heat, a lock, and a case manager checking in every week is not a band-aid. It is the difference between life and death. And the data backs it up. Veteran homelessness has declined by more than 55% since 2010. The estimated number of homeless veterans in 2025 is approximately 31,800, the lowest number ever recorded. That decline is directly connected to targeted programs, including tiny home villages that meet veterans where they are instead of forcing them through a bureaucratic maze that many of them cannot navigate. The organizations making this work have figured out something that government agencies keep missing. The barrier to housing is not always money. Sometimes it is the dog, sometimes it is the rules, sometimes it is the pride of a person who served their country and cannot stomach the idea of standing in a line at a shelter. So they build a village, make it pet-friendly, make it voluntary, provide case managers who are themselves veterans, and let people heal on their own timeline. In Edmonton, Canada, the Homes for Heroes Foundation took this even further. They built a village of 20 tiny homes specifically designed for veterans. But before they broke ground, they sat down with 200 veterans and asked them exactly what they needed. The answer surprised them. Small units, not large ones. Because when someone who has been living in military barracks and then on the street suddenly gets 700 square feet of empty space, the instinct is to hoard. And hoarding triggers a cascade of mental health problems that sets the recovery back months. So the homes are small on purpose. Just enough space to feel safe without feeling overwhelmed. Each Edmonton unit includes heating, air conditioning, electricity, and a porch that locks from the inside. The village has a full resource center, recreational space, and community gardens. The people who built it listened to the people who would live in it, and that made all the difference. That same principle shows up in every project that actually works. The ones that fail are the ones designed in an office by people who have never spent a night outside. The ones that succeed are the ones where somebody asked a simple question: what do you actually need? Right now, there are A-frame cabin plans available online for under $10. Full printable blueprints for structures a beginner can build in 2 weekends with nothing more than a circular saw, a drill, and a tape measure. Some are designed explicitly for off-grid living with built-in provisions for solar panels, ventilation, and insulation. And people are not just building these one at a time. Community groups across the country are organizing build days where volunteers show up at dawn, divide into teams, and construct multiple A-frame cabins in a single weekend for their local homeless population. Churches are donating empty lots. Veterans organizations are providing skilled labor. Local hardware stores and lumber yards are donating materials by the truckload. In some towns, a single weekend build event produces 5 or 6 finished cabins, each one ready to house someone by Monday morning. That is faster than most cities can process a single building permit application. 750,000 Americans have no home tonight, the richest country on the planet, and 750,000 people are sleeping outside. The people building A-frame cabins in their backyards and side lots are not waiting for the argument to be settled. They have already started building. And that might be the most American thing about this entire story. When the system fails, someone in a garage somewhere picks up a circular saw and starts fixing it. If this changed the way you think about homelessness or housing, subscribe. I cover stories like this every week. And if you or someone you know is a veteran, the Veteran's Blueprint is in the description. It is free, and it covers the programs and resources I talked about today in more detail than I can get into on this platform. I will see you in the next one.